So this presentation is on Catano's article, A Multicultural Educational Perspective on Serving the Culturally Diverse Gifted. So the article is an examination of identification, instruction, and curriculum in regards to gifted education for culturally diverse students. And the article looks at these different aspects of gifted education through both the assimilationist and pluralist perspectives, and is looking at the differences and comparing these perspectives throughout. And Catano works to address major concerns for instructors within the different areas of gifted education. So the article first looks at research, and studies so far have not focused a lot on the gifted student population. And although this article was originally published in 1999, a lot of the critiques and lack of research, I think, is still evident today, considering the gifted population, especially when it comes to multiculturalism. And so when this article was published, there was limited research on best practices for instructors to provide multicultural gifted education. So not a lot of information on how to differentiate curriculum or instruction or practice for culturally diverse students. And something that's brought up is that when doing research on how to instruct and educate culturally diverse students, we need to look at the differences within cultural groups, and that needs to be considered when developing culturally responsive instructional practices, not only the differences between groups, because yes, there are differences between cultures such as Asian American and white, Black and Hispanic, but also within all of these different cultures and broader racial or ethnic groups. There are smaller subgroups based on countries of origin or religion and different aspects. And so it's just as important to look at the variance within these groups in order to be able to provide the most responsive and inclusive instruction to all students. And something that's been found to be effective through studies is that observing anthropologically a culture's modes of communication and interaction patterns that can be observed and then replicated within the classroom and instruction. So an example was that some Native American groups were studied, and it was seen that storytelling is a very common communication style and pattern used within these cultures, and so that was incorporated into the classroom and in providing instruction as a way to better reach the Native American students within those classrooms. So practices such as this can be done to, and then that communication can be adapted into classroom instruction. The article then looked at theoretical and philosophical frameworks of approaching gifted education, and the main two philosophies are assimilation versus pluralist. So in the assimilationist perspective, students are encouraged to give up their cultures and adapt to mainstream culture in order to succeed. So this is seen as changing the student and having the student assimilate to mainstream society in order to be high achieving, while the pluralist perspective is seen as changing the school. So the cultures of the students are welcome into the classroom, and instruction is modified to respond to and be inclusive of the diverse student population. So reflecting in the school all of the different cultures of the population and incorporating that within the school environment, whereas the mainstream society is promoted within the assimilationist perspective. And then within different state gifted programs, two main approaches have been seen in gifted education, and those are equality of treatment versus individualization. So in equality of treatment, all students are identified for and served by the gifted education program in the same way. So they're all given the same assessment. It's the same process for every student, regardless of need or identity. Whereas in individualization, the process is differentiated based upon the unique student. but this does not include necessarily, it's not based on their membership within certain racial or economic groups. Instead, each student is treated differently, and neither of these views address the underlying systemic issues that lead to inequity, so they may be seen as band-aids to promote academic achievement without actually addressing or doing anything to fix the issues that cause inequity, so continuing to perpetuate those systems. And Catano references a quote by Cummins in which he says that the underachievement of ethnic students as a group stems directly from their interactions with educators in the schools. So saying that if teachers are not valuing the cultures of their students and instead are pressing upon them a mainstream culture, then the stereotypes towards different cultural groups and the power structures of mainstream society are then replicated for the students and can negatively impact them. And a common concern brought up in regards to multicultural education in general is that certain cultural values for diverse cultures may be in conflict with educational achievement, but what has been seen is that students can become fluent in multiple cultures, and as Catano states, it would appear that cultural flexibility is an attainable goal. So just as students can function within and use multiple languages, they can adapt to multiple cultures. And some of these values, such as communication or values in regards to time and authority and community, can be incorporated within the classroom as well. And education can still, educational achievement can still be promoted for all cultures. And then the next aspect discussed is that of identification. So as we have discussed within the course, there's an underrepresentation of culturally diverse students in gifted education. And most states continue to use standardized assessments, even though these assessments are known to be biased towards the mainstream culture and white and higher income students. And the fact that states continue to use this standardized process for all students, that is a function of the assimilationist perspective. But most researchers agree that there needs to be a use of multiple tools and assessments and practices for identifying gifted students. So there's this agreement, but it's not actually seen in policy or practice. But what's recommended is identifying the cultural strengths within each culture and using assessments that can measure these cultural strengths, or using a variety of alternative and non-biased assessments. And this matches more with a pluralist perspective. And there is a concern within the educational field that the emphasis on increasing the identification of culturally diverse gifted students is that this ignores all of the culturally diverse students within regular education, and that we need to be supporting and promoting them, as that is a higher population. However, if we incorporate the practices such as student-centered learning, higher order thinking skills, and experiential learning in the regular curriculum, this can help promote achievement for all students, while also maintaining a separate gifted education program, and this can lead to helping improve recognition of giftedness and promoting success for all students by providing rigor and skill building within the regular classroom. So it can benefit all students and allow better identification for underrepresented gifted students as well. And then the process of schooling was looked at. So there's the intervention versus empowerment. So the intervention approach is deficit-based, and this looks at weaknesses of students and trying to reduce these weaknesses and give them skills and build their ability to succeed in the dominant society. So this falls under the assimilationist perspective, while the empowerment perspective focuses on building strengths of students, such as bilingualism. So if a student was not a native English speaker, allowing them to do work and build both their native language and English language skills, and allowing both of those strengths to come out in the classroom instead of only focusing on the English language. And so this is a strengths-based approach. And there, so if we are including the practices mentioned in the identification section to improve the regular education classroom, such as student-centered and learning and higher level thinking, as well as culturally responsive counseling and engaging the family and community within the classroom, we can address this question a little bit of whether cooperative learning is beneficial or harmful to gifted students. There's been a lack of research in this area, and they said that there could be benefits for gifted students. More research needs to be done to it if cooperative learning is used with purpose and structure, because collaborative learning is promoted as a practice for culturally diverse students, so they just need to look and see whether it would be beneficial for gifted students specifically as well. And then the next section looked at is that of curriculum. So all gifted students need certain skills and achievement in mainstream curriculum to be successful is the assimilationist perspective. So I say that topics of cultural diversity could be additive features and included in curriculum, but this would not be done in a way to promote social justice or advocacy. It would instead just be looking at different literature, art, or basic history of the cultures without really looking at differing perspectives or what can be done to advocate for equity for these different cultures. And the focus is instead on high academic achievement, but this does not necessarily provide equity in social and economic issues. So culturally diverse students may be able to be very successful within the school, but this does not keep them from facing discrimination or barriers within society or income or economic status. And then the other way a curriculum can be approached is through a curriculum of empowerment and advocacy. So this matches with the pluralist perspective, and in this approach should be very strengths-based and trying to build skills to allow students to create social change, to incorporate and learn about different perspectives, different cultures, and including a multicultural curriculum to promote these skills for students and allow them to then move forward in society to for equity in these areas and to be able to overcome barriers when they're faced with them later in society. And on the topic of multicultural curriculum, some have concern that this can cause a deletion of critical content from the normal and standard curriculum. However, multicultural education can positively impact all students because through learning about different cultures and practices, it promotes empathy, critical thinking, and understanding diverse perspectives and increased awareness of other people's experiences and cultures, and can focus a lot on problem solving as well.